Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and today we are working our way through the album Sonic Origami, and our song for this episode is called Shelter from the Rain. This one comes in at just a little bit over 6 minutes, and it's so common that these guys write songs that are 6 minutes or more. Seems to be a very comfortable mark for them. But you're not getting a lot of radio play with that, unfortunately, especially in 1998. It was really about, shorter songs, unless they were, considered oldies or classics, they would play longer songs. But yeah, that's why we get so many of these, chopped down radio play or edit versions just to get them on the radio. And so we're going to start the song right now. Here it is, Shelter from the Rain. Right off the bat, I'm definitely getting some imagery, and a lot of it, ties into the literal translation of the title. I'm just kind of picturing it's late at night. There's like one light shining from somewhere, not too far in the distance, but like everything around is just drenched. The rain is coming down, and maybe you're standing underneath an awning, and you just have, kind of a somber feeling. Rain does that to people a lot. It kind of brings out some sadness in it. For us here in the desert, it's a great thing. I personally love it when it rains, unless I happen to be out in it, but because our rains can hit pretty hard and pretty fast. And because the ground is so hard here, being so sun-baked, it floods very quickly. So it can get very dangerous very quickly out here. But I do love the rain. We definitely do not get enough of it. And so thinking about this, I'm thinking like maybe it's some visual I have from a movie or something, but I could almost smell the rain coming off of the wood, that wet wood smell. I don't know why I'm getting that visual, but I love the rhythm guitar that we have going on here along with the bass. That sounds good. It's beautifully blended. If the bass were any louder, it would be too much. And if it were any quieter, it wouldn't feel like it was enough. So they really found that sweet spot for it. And then, of course, that beautiful solo right over the top. And, with rain comes emotion for a lot of people, like I said. And so that really is a fitting way to open a song with this title. Regardless of the lyrics, just even getting into, basing the opening on the title, I think it's very, very fitting.
Felt the heat from our emotions. We had fire in our veins. All those nights we'd spend alone in your room. Through my silent thoughts, I still remember.
Wow, I love the imagery in this song. And for some reason, I'm equating it to like a childhood friend. Somebody that you would hang out with. Maybe it was somebody that you lived with, a sibling or a cousin. Maybe it was a neighbor or somebody close by, maybe down the street. Just somebody that you had a very close and special relationship with. And these are really powerful images. I don't know why I'm specifically equating this with childhood, but I really love the lyrics here. And you guys know I'm not a huge lyrics guy, but this is a really, really nice image. And I love the passion in Bernie's voice. It sounds really, really good. I really love when Trevor, or really any of the bass players in Heap, do these meandering bass lines. And for a song like this, it's so open musically. I mean, Mick's playing some little inflections here and there. We've got some nice, gentle keyboards going on. Drums are very simple. In the chorus here, there's a lot of ride cymbal, which is really nice. But it's really the bass that is moving this one musically, and I really dig this. It's so classic of this band to have a bass line like this, and sometimes we get it from Trevor, and sometimes we don't. And I think this is a great song that he picked to do it on.
When our hearts were young, we never thought that life would change. Now the seasons go on. Oh, why do we shelter from the rain? All those nights we'd spend alone in your room. Through my silent thoughts, I still remember.
I really appreciate the musical construct here. It's actually pulled off very well. You've got Trevor carrying part of the verse. You have Mick carrying part of the verse, just trading off gently back and forth, very respectful. Just I'll play, then you play, then I'll play, then you play. And it really just adds a different feel to the song. I love that structure. I think it's done very, very well here. Then, of course, we've got this great build from Bernie as we go into the next part. And I think I heard the beginnings of an organ there. I'm not sure.
We will use the power of love. Free our souls in endless love. We would sacrifice our hopes and dreams because without love, our world would surely die. When our hearts
Yep, organ, but not the kind of normal, gritty, distorted organ that we're hearing here. This is a very nice, clean tone. Sounds really good, too. Again, the balance is very nice on this song. Very well mixed. I love this passionate part. Lee is very solid here, as always. I mean, the guy is basically a human metronome. Not a lot of drummers I could say that about because, they're human and you're going to play a little faster when the song's more exciting and a little slower than the tempo when it might not be, or maybe still a little above where the tempo should be. It's very rare that you hear just a perfect, when you're not playing to a click track and you don't have anybody correcting all those little things, sliding that snare hit that was slightly off back into position. But Lee is just such a natural drummer. You don't have to worry about him. You just know that he's got that foundation. He's playing properly, and you can just kind of let him do his thing.
we go, we had fire in our veins, and each time we touched, we melt in the flames. When our hearts we own, we knew pleasure, we knew pain, but each time we kissed, we burn in the flame till the fire in our veins.
I didn't really realize it before, but if there was one thing I would adjust in this mix, it would probably be the bass drum. It's kind of thin sounding, and I think this song would sound better if the bass drum really kind of punched your chest more. The bass is actually louder in the mix than the bass drum. It sounds, not really punchy. And I think that might have worked a little bit better with this song because especially in this last section where you really want to feel that ba, da, ba, ba, you really want that hitting your chest. And it doesn't quite do it. But the rest of the song, everything else sounds fantastic. And it's not Lee's performance. It purely comes down to a sound recording issue for me. Whether they captured a punchy kick and ruined it in the mix or whether they just didn't really capture a solid kick sound going in, I'm not sure. There's really no way to tell because even, by 1998, we had some pretty good tools in the studio where they could fix a lot of things. And even just, some simple EQ work could change that. But yeah, I think that's the only thing that this is lacking is that push from the bass drum, because the bass guitar is there, it's delivering, and the bass drum is delivering, but it's just not there, if that makes sense. Well, I love the sound of mixed guitar on that solo. For one, there was just a little bit of grit in it at times, but certainly not a heavily distorted guitar. I think that this really was the right tone for the solo. It just has enough grit to make you kind of feel that emotion a little bit more, but not overpowering, not like, wow, this really kind of stands out too much from the song. And of course, when you're doing an emotional solo, sometimes, that can work. But for the most part, you're playing the higher notes. You're not going to hear the distortion as much anyway as you would on the lower notes. But in this case, yeah, it just blended just perfectly. And I think that Mick did a great job covering for the vocals in that solo. I love the way the organ just slipped right back in there. I was hoping that would happen because it felt kind of empty without it. And it was a really good time to bring it back. But also it just adds, a little bit to thicken the sound, but also just change the tone just a little bit, but make it a little more hearty as well. Well, going into the solo, that was a great build musically and vocally, right heading up to the stop. And I really liked the way they did the stop. It was really unexpected. It wasn't, like a hard cymbal with a choke on it or, anything like that. It just stopped. And I thought that was actually pretty cool. It was very unexpected. And then it just came right back in with a snare and a crash, very classically. But yeah, that was a really nice part. And then, of course, we're treated to another lovely solo section and then back into the song again. Very, very well done. Very beautiful the way that this song has flowed. And I'm really enjoying it. Pretty classic Lee Kerslake playing here at the end. And I've noticed it's become kind of a thing with him is that he'll just, he'll support you during the song and he just bides his time and waits for his chance to kind of go off a little bit in the ending section. I noticed too that they're ending a lot more of their songs than they used to. More of the songs used to fade out, it seems, in the past. And they're ending a lot more of them. This one could be considered a fade, I suppose, because the organ fades out. But basically, the band ends the song instead of the whole band continuing on and fading out. So I consider this more as a song ending than a fade out because the whole band, the rest of the band has stopped. I don't know statistically or what the actual definition of a fade out versus a stop would be, but that's where I've always separated the two myself, is if the band in general stops and there's just one thing that fades out or two things that fade out, then it's a stop. But it's really nice. It's very well done. The song just flows so gently and beautifully through the whole thing, even with the solos that they're like just on the edge of being over the top. Like if he played any faster or anything a little more crazy, might have been too much for the song. I do feel like the last, or in this last section, the first couple of drum fills that Lee Kerslake did were a little ambiguous for the song. They were really cool fills, but were they over the top for the song? I kind of felt like they were. And then he kind of settled in a little bit and did some of his more classic, tom bass drum type fills. But yeah, it's definitely a good song, a great vocal delivery on this one, really emotional. I love the way that they played into the title. I also like the fact that I kind of, honed in on it from the beginning when I talked about it reminds me of my childhood and youth and that sort of thing. And then they were talking in the song later on about, when we were young. And so obviously this is a reflective song on a situation that may or may not have ever happened, but it gives you that feeling of a little bit of nostalgia. And again, that really does kind of go with the rain. A lot of times when it's raining, you kind of just, sit in the windowsill, watch the rain come down, maybe look for the flashes of lightning. You feel that thunder rumbling through the house, and it just brings back memories, For me, I grew up in a tornado town. My house was never hit. Our shed was, that disappeared, but it was not uncommon to have in the spring and early parts of the summer, green sky, pea soup green, and you knew that you better get in the basement. And of course, here we don't have basements, but here we also don't have tornadoes in Las Vegas, except in the movies where they seem to destroy the entire city every time that they show Las Vegas. But in any case, it really, for me, is one that plays on that nostalgia. It reminds me of growing up in Michigan. It reminds me of, trying to see it, see if you can catch it coming down the street. I remember my grandfather would take his 8mm camera and film the tornadoes before, well, he probably waited a little too long sometimes to get back in the house, but he would just stand his ground on the porch, watch that tornado come down the street. And, when it was a little too close, he would say, all right, that's enough, and get back in the house and go down to the basement. So, this definitely has some associative memories for me. And they're probably all different for you guys. I mean, some places that you guys listen from have heavy rains where it rains quite often. And other times people like me don't get a lot of rain. But either way, it's a beautiful song, even if you can't identify with the story, even if it doesn't, tie you into something in your life or, in maybe someone else's life that you've known. But it's a beautiful song, and one that I'm really glad that they included on the album. It's kind of hard to believe it's over 6 minutes because it really seemed to go by a lot faster than that. But it was 6 minutes and 9 seconds according to the file. And there you have it. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the show, guys. We will be back because that's what we do. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!